Welcome back with me, Amron-Paul, and Zachary Nightingale. Zach, after we all talk about all this thing, now the nightmares actually begin when people actually trying to find a lawyer, because I heard a lot of bad story with bad lawyers and that kind of thing. So how can people start finding that?
And that is a challenge, and it's hard to differentiate an accomplished lawyer from a less accomplished one. One thing that's very important off the bat is to not rely on what are called notaries or notarios in the immigrant community, because oftentimes they don't have as much experience on anything complicated involving immigration law, and there's a lot of misinformation about that. So the first thing is you want to make sure the person you consult with is a lawyer, or has what's called is an accredited representative who is an expert on immigration law. I would recommend starting within the gay community. Okay. If you're a member of the gay community, okay, and looking for a lawyer who you will feel comfortable with. Cities with large gay populations like San Francisco, Los Angeles, or New York will have a much more organized system. In San Francisco, there's an organization called the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights, okay, that will help individuals pro bono with asylum cases, specifically gay or transgender asylum cases. And there are probably equivalent organizations in the larger cities. There are certain national organizations that will also help. In San Francisco also, we have the National Center for Lesbian Rights. Okay. And I believe in New York, Immigration Equality is a nationwide organization that helps members of the LGBT community with their immigration issues, more as a policy matter, but they can often help match applicants with knowledgeable attorneys or pro bono attorneys. Okay. Oftentimes what the Lawyers Committee does is they'll match up a pro bono attorney with a mentor who is an expert in immigration law, and that way you get the valuable experience of someone knowledgeable and the enthusiasm of someone willing to help your case pro bono. And I think that's been a very successful combination for a lot of people. Oftentimes in the smaller communities, you want to look for members of the LGBT attorneys organizations, because they're probably going to be more sensitive to the issues. The nationwide organization of immigration attorneys is called AILA, A-I-L-A, which stands for the American Immigration Lawyers Association.
You can Google that, I'm sure, with this technology now.
That's right. I believe it's AILA.org. Okay. And that organization tends to be comprised of the more involved immigration attorneys, the ones who make a point of staying abreast on the current issues in the law. And if you're going to hire an immigration attorney who's going to be acting on a paid basis rather than pro bono, I would certainly recommend that you confirm, which is public information on the website, that they're a member of AILA, because that will be an indication that they are very serious about staying abreast of current issues in immigration law and generally will be aware of LGBT issues. And I think it's legitimate for an applicant who's seeking advice to ask the attorney they meet with, how many such cases have you handled before?
No, I'm asking you that question.
And it doesn't have to be that the individual is gay themselves, okay, but that also gives a comfort level to the applicant. As an attorney, I make a point of explaining to my clients when I first meet them two things. One is that I've handled many gay cases, clients who are applying for status based on their sexual orientation or gender identity. And quite often in the first meeting, I will tell a client that I'm gay myself as a way to help them feel comfortable to express their issues to me.
And that is very, very important to have that comfort level, for a client. Like for me, I'm from Asia, okay? And when I came in, and I always have this timid feeling, that I don't have to write anything. When I talk to a lawyer, that means like the lawyer can only talk to me. I can't even ask. So I think to have you, because I interact with you a few times, and yes, you do have that very comfortable, comfort feeling to talk to the client, so I don't feel afraid to ask question. Because again, you know, this Asian society, we all tend to be more timid than the American. So
I think it's very important for the client in the relationship to have a comfort level with their attorney,
Correct.
because usually their case is going to involve such personal issues that they're going to have to talk about that the client should not be inhibited.
right.
Okay.
Correct.
The role of the attorney is to help the client figure out how they're going to present the case to the government authorities and what's relevant and what's not, and how best for the individual to express him or herself. You need a very close working relationship, professional, but also a close working relationship with the attorney. Sometimes attorneys will ask their staff people to work with the client. And that's a very standard thing to do, but that simply means that then you have to feel you have the comfort level with the person who you're dealing with.
Yes. How much money are you talking about a range? So when people kind of like want to do this and they have to, you know, count their pockets, of course.
Right. You know, that I would have to say is all over the map. The reason is that in the larger cities, there might be a more robust organization and coordination of helping people who have lower incomes find pro bono attorneys or attorneys who will charge less. Oftentimes, immigration attorneys will recognize that their clientele don't have a lot of resources. In my experience, no immigration attorney is in it just for the money, because that's not where money is to be made. Most immigration attorneys or experts in the field feel very connected to the community and see it as part of their mission to help the community. And so, though they do want to be paid, it's not necessarily at the rates that a corporate client might pay. I think that if you're paying a private attorney, you're probably looking at a few $1,000s if you're hiring an attorney who's going to be very thorough, which I recommend.
Yes.
Okay. Some attorneys will tell you, we're going to do it on the cheap because I know you don't have resources, but we might not be able to do some part of the case thoroughly. And I think people should be very wary of that, because that is not the best way to interact with the immigration system. The government's not going to do it on the cheap when they're reviewing your case.
Yes.
You want to be well equipped to handle all those issues. And that's where people can sometimes get into trouble. So the cost is obviously very important, but it can't be your number one factor. And if it is for those with very limited resources, you really want to get hooked up with the pro bono organizations that will help. And fortunately, the gay lesbian community in the United States has gotten pretty organized, and most of the larger cities you can get tapped into those connections.
And now back to you. Question: how many cases? What is the percentage cases that you have won?
That we have been successful on?
Yeah, for Asian immigration.
The key to being successful is to accurately anticipate what is going to happen in a case.
Okay.
I will often tell prospective clients who consult with me that I don't feel 100% confident that their case would be successful. And I will warn them they're taking a big risk in coming forward, and oftentimes they'll decide not to apply.
I see.
If people are already in the immigration system, well, then there's no harm in applying, because they're already facing potentially having to leave the United States. But if they're not already facing that, you want to be very careful about whether you actually apply or not. I've been lucky that I would say the large majority of the cases we've actually seen through were successful. And part of the secret to that is being prepared to litigate in immigration court.
I see.
When somebody hires an attorney, I recommend that they ask, are you prepared to litigate in immigration court if we're not successful? So that you have an idea of, is the person looking at the big picture?
Right. And now, the most important things, how people can get in touch with you, Zach?
Well, I have a private practice in San Francisco. So you can Google my name, Zachary Nightingale,
How do you spell that?
Nightingale, and my first name is Zachary, Zachary. And my office is in San Francisco, and oftentimes I will be able to put people in touch with the pro bono organizations locally, or how to help them find other organizations.
Can you quickly mention your phone number? There's
415-981-3000.
There you go. So I hope this will help everyone out there who's seeking for an immigration kind of lawyer type case. All right, here Amron-Paul again with the SFGAM studio. Till later.